Hello everyone, welcome to the last video training course of this series. In this video, we're going to be learning the easiest way for creating designs, which is the low poly design method. It's a simple and easy project, and I think you'll be able to create stunning artworks with it when you get the hang of it. So let's dive right in and create. Alright, so now let's open up the picture I'll be using. But first we'll create a new document. I want to be using something around this size. I think that's the size I used originally. There we go. Open that up. Now let's go to File, Place, and I'm going to choose Blue Jay Low Poly 2. Yours will be called Blue Jay Low Poly picture. And I basically got this design and picture from unsplash.com. It's a really great website to pick some pictures from to design your artwork, especially for low poly. I'm going to size this, scale it just right. I want to make sure I get this in the center just right. Probably should just extend it out just a bit. One thing I probably should just work on, I'll just probably scale my artboard to that size. There we go. Cool. Perfect. I don't want to make any changes to the size. I just want to leave it the same because I want to be able to make the pixels stay on par with the picture. So now first thing we do is we go over here. I just put this in my properties over here. So now let's create a new layer. First we lock this layer, layer 1, and we're going to call this Blue Jay. There we go. Now let's create a new layer. We're going to call this one Background. Alright. Perfect. Good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn that off. And the first thing we're going to do is get out our rectangle tool. We're just going to click and drag. Oop, not quite there. I don't think I have the smart guides turned on. This is off to a great start. Smart guides. There we go. Perfect. Alright. I'm probably going to turn that off later because I want to be able to get everything just right and on par with everything. So now I'm just going to choose any old random color. I'm going to choose something like a bluish, wintry, snow, icicle type blue. As it is, this Blue Jay is in a picture where he's in the snow. I basically took away the background in Photoshop and I edited it a bit. But this is not my original image. This is something I found on Unsplash, like I said. Alright, so there we go. We're going to lock that. We're going to show our Blue Jay, and then we're going to drag this down to the bottom. And now we're going to create a new layer. I'm going to call this one Poly. Alright, cool. So now we make our poly shapes like so by using the pen tool. So I'm going to zoom in on my bird here. Get it just right. Cool. There we go. Now we just turn off the color fill right here. Oh, wait, nope, wrong button. Alright, so basically we're just going to have our outline for this entire poly designing. So what we're going to do is make that white because I want it to be able to stand out so I can see what all I'm doing. You want to be able to have decent outlines for your poly design that you can see and that stand out properly so that you'll remember which ones to click on later. Because I find it a lot easier in the poly designing process. I'm still a little rusty on it. I'm practicing myself, but this is probably going to be pretty easy. It's not going to be too hard. I practiced on this bird a lot. And if you want to practice on something a little more advanced, you can. So alright, first we're going to start with this one. The beak. And it doesn't really have to be on par with the outlines. Just need to make it poly, because pixels, remember, they're not really detailed very well like in video games and such. They're very low graphics. This is basically what this type of artwork is. It's like low graphics artwork. First thing I want to do though is I want to go turn off my smart guides. If I can remember where it was. There you go. Alright. Now we'll just go ahead and hold shift. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to basically just draw over this line right here, and I'm going to attach every anchor point I can find. But you don't want to do that entirely, because why? I'll tell you that later once I get this part of the project done. But you want to go over this line as well when you are creating a new poly on top of another or attached to another poly, like this, like so. There we go. And you keep doing the same process through the entire time you are creating your poly project. So hold down shift. So when you hold down shift, it basically can help you attach to your anchor points, because when I don't hold shift, it basically does that. It gets rid of my anchor point. So when you hold shift, you can then attach your poly together, like so. Alright, so just try to make, it doesn't have to be perfect, I don't think. But on some areas, you want to keep it, like I said, on par. I'm trying to keep things on par here with the photo itself. Like in some areas where it looks kind of square and rectangular shaped around here, that's the best thing to do, like the eye. And you also want to start basically off at another point on your illustration. So I'm basically going to do that. I'm going to hold shift for the anchor point, and I'm going to create the eye separately from these poly shapes. Just don't forget to attach everything. Cool. So here, now we're going to go ahead and continue with this part of the design. And you want to, like I just showed you, you want to be able to start on different individual places on your project and design. And you want to start off somewhere where it's not, all just like, starting from, one end, down to the last end or to the very end. You want to start, kind of just in different individual areas, like such, the wings. And there we go. I want to just leave that there for later. Probably this is going to be this one's a little difficult. It doesn't really have to be on par with the wings, but what I'm going to do is keep creating poly shapes so it'll look just right. I may take a while. And so from there, I'm going to keep making just the right shapes that I find to be doable with my design and on par with the bird. There we go, perfect. That probably doesn't look correct. I might need to do some correction here and there. So right now I'm just going to speed this up so you don't have to watch me put polys on every part of my design. So I'll be right back. Just sit tight, just wait. Alright, so I pretty much got my bird done here so far, and I already got it saved, so I pretty much named it Low Poly Bird, so if you're following along, be sure to name it that. So for now, I'm just going to leave the bird the way it is, and I'm going to start on the wood plank down here, so I'll be real quick with that, so be right back. Alright, so I pretty much got my polygon shapes made, so now we're going to move on to the coloring process. I went back and made some touching up and fixed some minor issues that had to be fixed around the facial area here, so I pretty much had to fix some big and small areas. Try not to go too big or too small with these polygon shapes. You want to get, just the right details, especially when it comes to the easy ones. But if you want to give it a lot of detail with, like, say small polygons, in certain areas on, like, facial structure, then you should probably practice, with that for a long time. But for now, I've got it all figured out now and finished. So now let's move on to the coloring process. So we're pretty much down to the last details we need to add to our design, which is the coloring process. And it's the simplest and easiest part of this entire project. So what I'm going to do is select my keyboard shortcuts for the direct selection tool and the eyedropper tool. I'm going to get the direct selection tool by clicking V. And then I'm going to select the first polygon shape I started off with, and then the I key for the eyedropper tool. And then I'm going to select the correct shaded area that represents the beak. I'm going to do the same process and select each individual polygon shape. Sometimes it is a little hard to get to some of these shapes, so what I recommend you do is you click and drag and deselect the other parts you've probably selected until only get to that one polygon shape, because there are some, polygon shapes in the middle here that are pretty hard to reach. Just clicking them individually can be a little frustrating, to get to, because sometimes you accidentally select the one over next to it. So I recommend you click and drag and then select, hold down shift and click off the other polygonal shape that you don't need. So there. What we're going to keep doing is selecting each individual shape, and the more you select each individual shape, the more your process and the more your design starts to really stand out, and the more detail it gains in your entire illustration. I'm going to just give that some more proper shading. And you see, it gives it that really cool, realistic 3D pixely shaped figure of the bird. And some of these colors aren't exactly gonna be on par with the entire image, and some of these shaded highlighted areas aren't exactly there's not too many outlines for some of these areas, and that's because it's polygonal shape and it's a little less detailed. So I recommend that you just improvise a little, or maybe if you need to go back and trace over some of these or edit some of these polygonal shapes, feel free to do so. It's up to you. And so we keep doing this process through the entire time, just like we did when we made our polygonal shapes. Select each individual polygonal shape. And as you can see, it's starting to really come together. And sometimes it'll just, create its own shaped figure of the bird with the certain right colors you pick, or the certain colors you are selecting for each polygonal shape. It's not going to exactly look the same as the drawing, but it'll come out really beautifully if you just try out different colors to see what exactly it's going to look like in the process, and how it will play out to your entire illustration. So I'm just going to speed run through this, so we'll be right back. Okay, so that's your design. Sometimes it probably requires a little more skill to get it just right, with all like the shadows and highlights. And well, as you could see, as I was going a little further into detail with it, it started to stand out more as the figure I wanted to stand out as, with the shadow areas and such. What I recommend you do is start out with small poly shapes and then go to medium to big. Maybe give it some gaps here and there, little gaps, small corners too. That way it gives it that shadowy effect. Just try to like practice at it. But it's always good to start off with a little imperfection in order to get it better. Like I'd say, I'm not too proud of the wings exactly. I'm not very good at doing the bird's wings. The wing, I've seen better detailed designs than this, and this is probably is good enough, I guess. Let me just turn this off. Looks it really well, neatly designed and detailed. Yeah, that's beautiful. But I wouldn't say this is like my best work. There are better designs out there with better detail on the feathers and such. But it's good enough for a start. Now remember, perfection can get a little irritating. The more you focus deeply on it, the more time you'll take up. Sometimes, though, it doesn't hurt to go back and make some changes, of course, on your poly shapes or some of the colors around here. I might need to do some adjustments on the colors here and there. But for now, I think that's good enough. After all, this is just practice. So that'll do it for this series, and I'll be working on more classes like this sometime in the future. So I will see you soon, and good luck drawing.